So I don't know if you've noticed, but Starfield requires an online connection on its PC requirements page on Steam. Now, I'm not certain what this internet connection is here for, but my guess is this is going to make the game an online only title, in my own opinion, unless, of course, the developers are saying maybe you need a broadband internet connection to establish that you've bought the game or whatever, like another 30 FPS on console game did, like Gotham Knights. I know I always throw Gotham Knights in here because I'm not gonna let those people who made fun of me live it down. I really have to continue to iterate that because I think it's important. Not necessarily because of any spite, but just the fact that I'm glad that this is coming out, that these consoles are limited in what they're capable of doing. Now, why would these video games require for you to, run the game with an online connection? We've noticed that there are games that do it, usually ambitious games, games that use and leverage server mechanics to be able to run things like AI and to be able to run other processes would allow for you to be able to do it. Frederick Thylander is a developer that comes to mind. He's worked on the Division 1 and Division 2 and is also working on a Star Wars Outlaws game. Very experienced developer. His library is actually bigger than that. Worked on Mirror's Edge, I think Battlefield, and a whole bunch of other games. So in this conversation, when it came around somewhere, in the Outriders days, when everybody found out Outriders was going to be an online only game, people were asking questions to see if, or why the game was running online. And he was answering a lot of questions. In fact, he responded to, people like the YouTubers, Young who was actually asking why Outriders was in this perspective. So there are conversations that both of them, had regarding this. But something that stood out was pretty much a question that somebody asked them where they said something about the Division because he had talked about the AI and all that stuff. He said Division 1 and 2 run NPCs basically entirely on the server side, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to run like they do now with those graphics. And he says, among other parts, yeah. So basically, what he's saying is that that's a good thing about tech like this. I could name a lot of games I wouldn't be able to run if they were offline only. Also, I'm not a big fan of this, but it allows the AI to be overall better since it's running on powerful servers instead of the client, right? It says you can make great AI regardless, but the processing power comes from somewhere. And you have to balance everything the game needs to do on the target hardware, which up to this point has been 2013 laptop CPUs, which is the Xbox One and the PS4. Now, this is in regard to those, but you notice that as the games continue to get more and more and more ambitious, you will realize that the online only is becoming more and more attractive. Whenever you do the offline side of things, you just need more hardware. Gotham Knights falls in that category. I made these arguments months ago. I was called a shill. I was called everything. Man, you should have seen the way people dragged me. But one thing about science is you usually get pushback whenever you're talking about a scientific aspect in regard to what people are still trying to discover. I learned this from university. I'm a trained scientist. Yes, I went to college and I studied biology as my major. And so usually when I read history, a lot of times whenever you provide a scientific theory, notion, hypothesis, you will get pushback. And it comes with the territory. You have to be able to prove as much as you can beyond reasonable doubt that this is usually or perhaps the issue that a lot of things are, referring to. In this case, why these games are running at 30 FPS on these new consoles. I've posited that the machines are limited in many ways and in many cases. So if we see Starfield needing an internet connection for it to be able to at least run a process, then I won't be surprised that they're actually doing a lot of things on the server side because they need it for a game of this scale. They're trying to run 1,000 worlds or whatever the heck it is that they're trying to do. The one thing I couldn't find, though, which I've been trying to locate, is on the Xbox side to see if you actually need an internet connection to be able to run the game. Is there a place on details or whatever it is? I don't know. I've been looking around to see if there's an internet connection that's needed because, they write all this stuff here, but there's nothing that, we can see. I mean, it says capabilities, it says playable on, nothing. I go to more, I can't see anything that's saying, online connection required. So, we're going to what it is that we have so far. And if you go to the product page, I guess you can continue to explore, but I'm not seeing anything here. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad that this conversation is coming full circle because again, it makes some people make the case or make it seem like 30 FPS games are bad, when in reality we've been voting and ranking 30 FPS games as game of the year, buying multiple copies of them, millions of copies of them have sold, and even games like Zelda are still hailed to be one of the more remarkable games. And that game has FPS drops, and it's not even running at the so-called perceived or, in a sense, expected frame rates from gamers anyways at 30 FPS. And in some instances, it will drop FPS when you're running some mechanics. Why is it doing that? The developers thought creatively that fulfilling their vision was more important than your frame rates. You know that there's actually an ability that you use in Zelda that it will basically drop the frame rates whenever you're using that ability, right? You know that, right? And I'm sure you know that in testing, that actually made its way through. Like Nintendo was like, yes, even if it will drop FPS, we want this to be in the game, so we're going to push it through. This is how game development is made. I see some people saying they would love the option to be able to make these tweaks themselves, but those options are available on PC for the most part. Depending on how the developers provide a lot of options for you and work with your PC settings and, being able to make those changes, are you going to be able to deal with that? But for the most part, the consoles are not necessarily going to do all that. That's why they're already making mid-refresh consoles on the Sony side. There's a PS5 Pro rumored to be in development, rumored to be deployed very soon. Why? You think it's because they just want to sell new machines? Well, yes, but why? Because the old machine is not going to be on par with that machine. That machine is going to be a little stronger, and we're going to see how it actually performs. But this is, anyway, my, whole thought process regarding this entire conversation. I'm so glad that this came back into the limelight. And, man, you can expect at least a dozen more videos on this whole topic. We're going to be looking at the technical side because I think it's very important for a lot of gamers to know so that they can be informed. I mean, yeah, I'm kind of rubbing it in to those who made fun of me, but those of you who would love to be educated and know where you can get the best performance in terms of playing games, definitely a PC is the way to go. And this continues to prove it over and over and over again. So thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you guys' time and audience, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.